let's actually start with the Maxroll mid-season update podcast. And thank you guys so much for joining. We have actually a very impactful list of changes, although the patch notes actually seem to be fairly or are fairly short. They actually have quite a lot of impact, and I want to go through the changes to quite a lot of builds today. And at the very end, I wanted to also do a really quick rapid-fire chat questions section. But first of all, I want to have a brief introduction for the people listening for what you guys are responsible on the D4 Maxroll team, and also what type of other content you create on the various platforms like YouTube, Twitch, and so on. So maybe we start out with Condis here.
Hello, I'm Condis. I'm a Maxroll Barbarian writer, the newest addition to the team. You can see my Flay Barb guide, which is already posted, and that's my first guide there. So if you have any insights to it, I'm welcome, because I'm still learning. And yeah, I'm mainly playing Barb. I'm playing Barb every season. We'll play Barb until my death. I just like bonking stuff. And my role is that I am a Polish content creator. That's what I'm mostly known for. I'm starting to do more English stuff, like Maxroll here, but I'm still mostly doing it in Polish. But I will, as for the Flay Barb guide, start to do some English content too. So if you are only English speaker, you can still follow me to find more stuff about mostly Barbarian.
Okay, thank you so much. Mippy, you go next.
Hey guys, I'm Mippy. I'm mostly doing rogue content. I've joined the Maxroll team like I think 2 to 3 months ago now. Was like the beginning or like mid of season 3. I'm mostly found on YouTube lately, but I do want to stream a little bit more as well. Also, many people might know me from the Sanctuary Discord, where I am the head of Rogue Game Mechanics Specialist. And I love spreadsheets, testing numbers, crunching builds. And I also love pushing ladders. This is mostly what my build videos are going to be about, like how can I also reach a high ladder push, a high tier in the pit. This is currently what I'm focusing on. And I'm also writing guides on Maxroll. I have the Headshot guide this season, and I also did a few of the specialized guides, like the Shadow Step build that did not take off too well, but we also had the Rapid Fire one, and you also saw a few things going around, like Rapid Fire one shot, and there's more stuff to come. I'm working on a Heartseeker video right now, so definitely a hype build still, and yeah, we're gonna see more of that.
Thank you, Mippy. Next up, Boiler.
Hey, I'm Boiler. I'm one of the Druid class riders over at Maxroll. I ride alongside Moxie and McFluffin. I joined the Maxroll team about a week before launch, and since that time, I've kind of gained a lot of responsibility on the Druid side. I'm currently responsible for the Wind Shear, Hurricane, Support, Pulverize, Tornado, and Lightning Storm guides over on Maxroll. So if you've seen any of those, check them out. I do stream maybe about once every other day on average, I would say, kind of as available. And most of my YouTube content to this point has been clears, although I have dipped my toes starting this season in creating actual build guides, formal build guides, going through all aspects of a build for you.
Thank you. And Woody, how about you?
Yes, hello guys. So I'm Woody. I play a lot of Diablo. I'm actually the director of the Diablo franchise on Maxroll. So for those that didn't know that, so basically I am responsible to make sure that everything goes well and have the overall overview of the team and the content that we're writing. Mostly Druid main. Rogue main.
Is that so?
I'm playing Druid right now. So so you might remember the Twisting Blades guides, for example, which I've actually just spent 2 hours updating earlier this morning in preparation for the hype patch for Twisting Blades. So there's that, and some other stuff that I've been working on. And I'm very happy to be here. So let's go.
Thank you so much. I think I closed the introduction out by saying I'm Chronix. I'm part of the Necromancer guide writer team alongside Macro BioBoy, and that's basically all there is to the Maxroll team. We're trying to force the YouTube channel a little bit more. This is exactly where this is going to be uploaded to as well. So if you guys are interested in more stuff like this, I suggest you subscribe to the Maxroll YouTube as well. Links to all of the content creators that are part of this podcast right now are going to be linked down in the description for people that are watching the VOD on YouTube. And yeah, outside of that, I'm also playing quite a lot of hardcore, trying to push the pit as much as possible, and having quite a lot of fun on stream doing various challenges and just having a blast. So let's start out with the first topic that we actually have, and this is about the first part of the patch notes where we go about over the Uber uniques that are changed. So for example, the Andariel's changes, and those have quite a lot of impact for not only the rogues that were mainly using that, but since the change to now it also triggering on the ranged enemies and not triggering from the wearer or the character itself, it's going to impact quite a lot of builds. And I've actually seen Woody's video, which I find extremely interesting, is the Chain Lightning Andy's Rogue. What's the idea behind that, Woody? Can you explain that to us?
That's a Sorg, not a Rogue.
Sorry,
but,
did I say Sorg? I'm sorry. I said Rogue, I meant Sorg. I'm extremely sorry.
Yeah. Well, it's just some idea I had because I've tried to make Andariel's work on other classes. So I think other people have also tried that with various setups. And, basically I was trying to replicate what we can do on Rogue already, where Andariel's is actually a very powerful item and has its own build that is actually like a valid meta, actually S-tier build at this point, I guess. And yeah, I wanted to see, my train of thought was, okay, so Sorg is kind of like a low baseline. It's not hard to beat other builds on the Sorg currently. So I was like, okay, even if it's even a fraction of the power of what you can do on Rogue, it would still be, somewhat acceptable for Sorg standards. So I tried to make some lightning setup work. I found still the currents, chain lightning, and lots of lucky hits. Sorg has a lot of that anyway. And I actually briefly tried it now until the patch is out. But as you learned, Andariel's was actually neither buffed in damage, nor does it proc on the enemy. So basically the entire patch was a lie for Andariel's. And I will revisit this again when that is fixed. But yeah.
Oh, so not only the damage hasn't been adjusted, but it also does not proc on ranged.
Yes.
Oh no.
So it's just not really working out at all right now because I was not really expecting to stand in the middle of a pack and start spamming chain lightning to the Sorg. So it's not really the way. And we'll see when they fix it. I'll try it more, I guess. It's definitely an intriguing change though, because it definitely opens up, interesting more setups. I think ultimately though, Andariel's will remain a rogue item, and whenever it's going to be good for rogues, and without any major changes for other classes that give like a lot more synergies. Druid has some of those, like the same glyphs that Rogue has, for example. There's like a tracker glyph, there's a Bane glyph. It's the same glyph on the Druid, but I tried it on Druid and it did not work out at all. So there is a lot of stuff missing for other classes to really make it good, I think.
I would say on the whole, I would say on the whole, Druids don't really scale either poison or lucky hit chance nearly as well as rogues. There's a low but non-zero chance that Windshear could maybe utilize Andariel's, assuming it gets fixed in the future. But my hopes aren't high for an Andy's Druid build.
I'm looking at the rogue. I think the potential that we have seen from Andariel's is quite strong. It seems like a good contender for the second best build right now. Obviously, the visual is off, and as Woody said, the damage is also not increased despite it should be so. We'll see how it turns out, because we in GMS we tried to optimize the Andariel's build a little bit, and we calculated it to be damage-wise very close to Heartseeker, especially with the new updates and things that are working with Andariel's, such as Deadly Ambush from Rogue, which is not supposed to work with Andariel's or anything that does not crit, but it does. So that's also something that we are going to look into. And
how about Barb Condes? Can you make it work?
Yeah, I mean, I tried. The problem on Barb is that you don't have that much lucky hit chance skills, and you can't scale it that well like rogues or sorks. You can try to go frenzy because it hits twice, so it may sound good, but it's not enough. You need way more lucky hits. Well, then can you try leap, because leap has very big base lucky hit chance, but then it's too slow and still not reliable enough. And if you scale leap, then you need to put a lot of points into making the cooldown lower, because it's possible to leap all the time, but then you need to put a lot of resource into leaping, not into damage and the lucky hit chance. So yeah, it's, as for now, no Andariel Barbs yet.
Yeah, I'm also really curious how we can actually make use of the lifesteal in the future, especially because right now it's more of like a you're either alive or you're dead situation. You're either full health or you're dead. So I don't really see the lifesteal being like a full-blown defensive stat. It's more of like a just feel-good stat where you are, after a fight, you are definitely going to be at full HP, but it's not really going to save you in one of those crucial moments, at least for now, I think, especially because it's some rather low scaling on the top end, right? It's not a real 2% lifesteal, because when we're hitting for millions, that would be quite a lot actually in terms of healing. I'm really curious if that is ever going to matter, that stat in the long run.
It is actually pretty good, I gotta say. So speaking of the lifesteal in particular, like I've been running a lot of Andario Rogue in the last like 2 weeks, and I do feel the lifesteal, and it's very nice to just kind of like dot up a pack and run away from it, and like no matter what hits you, you just kind of stay full life as the dot is ticking. So behind you, you have like the 5 pack, and you do like, I don't know, 10 million DPS on each of them. And even if the scaling is low, you're gonna be insta full HP whenever something hits you. So with dots in particular, that's really cool actually. So that's what I noticed. But yeah, it does have some low scaling, but I'm not really worried that even if, as long as we get like 0.1 lifesteal or something, that will still be enough to just kind of top us up like easily anyway on like any serious build in that game. So
yeah, to add to this, especially it is a good thing, because many things that are dangerous for rogues in particular, and rogues are the main users for Andariels, is, for example, things that have like this damage over time component, poison puddles on the ground, scorching affixes from elite packs, and also this was the case in patch 1.4.2, where shadow bosses had certain attacks that dealt damage over time. These are mostly tuned down in 1.4.3, but they were still dangerous to us in the previous patch, so we'll have to see how dangerous they are in the new patch. Very preliminary testing showed that to be a lot lower. And in these situations, a little bit more lifesteal can't hurt. I mean, it's sort of like a mini Undying, and we were running Undying in many rogue builds prior to cutting it for more DPS, because we also have Siphoning Strikes to top us up, but more healing can't hurt.
Yeah, so to elaborate on that real quick, so the reason why dots are so dangerous on rogues is because Dark Shroud only works against hit damage, not against ground effects or dots or something like that. So if you have something on you, then the lifesteal, especially with a dot build that Andarius produces, actually directly counteracts any kind of dot damage you could take, which is very strong.
It kind of makes the rogue very complete, right? So
yeah, basically, like you would think that, okay, Andarius doesn't have any defense, there's no life, it's not a Harlequin crest, right? There's no 20% DR, no defensive aspect, nothing, but the lifesteal is actually helpful as long as you don't get one shot. So it does help quite a bit.
Yeah, and also, like, to add, when you're playing Andarius, you can play Debilitating Toxins, which is a rogue passive that gives you 15% damage reduction. So you can kind of make up for that, because when you're playing Shaco, you may or may not have poison available to grant you that defense. So it's a nice initial name. It's not exactly 20%, and you don't get Dark Shroud ranks like with Shaco, but it does help defensively, and that's a pretty good thing for sure.
Speaking of defenses, when we are looking at Tyrael Smite and Doombringer, how do we look at changes for the damage increase for Tyraels and the damage increase to the Doombringer? Will we see any of these in the Maxroll guides right now? Is anybody going to now go like, okay, I will definitely make use of those, or is the double damage not enough?
I would want to add one thing on top of the topic of Andariel. And
yeah, sure.
Andariel does a very good synergy with Tyrell's Might, because for Tyrell's Might you need to have not the healthy status, but you need to be on full life. So the dots like Bleeds on Barb, Poisons on Rogue, Shadow Dots on Necro helps you use all the power of Tyrell's Might. And then, speaking of Tyrell's Mites, I'm playing right now the Whirlwind Barb with Tyrells, and you have very fun interaction when you spam Whirlwind. Then you just shoots out all the projectiles, and yeah, they deal significant damage, especially for clearing basic monsters. Not like the boss killer type, but especially for Hell Tides, you have full screen clear build on Barb. Like for the first time, you can just Whirlwind through the Hell Tide and everything on your screen dies. So yeah, that's very fun.
So it looks like it's definitely going to be more of like a speed farming, outer world farming type of thing for Tyrells, right? Or is anybody else going to be like, yep, I'll take that and make something out of it? Probably
I mean,
that's going to be the case, right?
Defensively, it's still very good. You can get your res very high.
Yeah, I think both items remain strong defensive options, but Druids can't wield the Doombringer, and they don't really scale Tyrells quite like a Barbarian might, so it's okay. It's not really why you take it.
Yeah, I kind of resonate with that. So I think like Tyrell's Might in particular is like exclusively used offensively for barbs, because they can actually scale it through stuff like Berserk Ripping and Gushing Wounds, which is like pretty busted currently. Other classes don't have these kind of generic damage increases that could work with such a proc. It's like a unique case, I think, because whenever that is like in a scenario where Gushing Wounds is ever like getting tuned down, which I guess is very likely, then I don't think that Tyrell's Might will even have the clear capacity at all. Maybe for Hell Tides, yeah, okay, because the bar is very low. If you can do like 1 million damage consistently or something, you're probably fine. But that's about it. So other classes, you can't really have these like generic damage buffs. Barbs are kind of unique with that, with Berserking and these other effects. Doombringer, on the other hand, I mean, people always ask me about Doombringer for rogues in particular, and I always say, okay, you can use it. It's like okay, you know, if you want to be tanky, it has a lot of life. It's cool. I think the buff that Doombringer received to make it a bit of a more proc-based damage item. It's basically a glorified elemental surge if you look at it, right? That's basically what it is. So yeah, there's no elemental surge build currently that I know of that is in any way like, you know, competitive. And well, you could maybe make like a slightly stronger version of an elemental surge build now. And that's basically how I see it. So I think the damage on Doombringer also doesn't really matter much.
Yeah, especially like the big issue that we have as rogues with Doombringer is we heavily rely on our weapon tempers right now because they are so strong. Either be it like Caltrops durations, which is basically just a free 2x damage increase. And this is something that Doombringer obviously can't do because it can't be tempered. And also to add like to Tyrells, if there was no ranks Dark Shroud on rogue chests, we would potentially run Tyrells. But as long as that exists, not Tyrells for rogues at least.
Is the damage reduction actually more with the Dark Shroud stuff? With the damage to with the ranks to Dark Shroud? Is that going to it's
very significantly higher.
Okay, on sheet just way more. Okay, I get it. Yeah. Okay, so next one, actually Starless. I am, as a Necromain and a Bone Spear lover, I always loved Starless Skies because it does so many things for me. It gives me a crazy damage multiplier, and it also solves resources basically completely for me. And on top of that, it now stacks to 5. So not only are you spending less resource, but you're also having a 50% damage multiplier now instead of 40. But at least for Necromancers, the problem is with the tempers existing on rings, they are way too valuable for me to pass up on those, even if that means I would potentially receive a 50% damage multiplier. Is there any use case for that on the Druid, for example, Boiler? Or the Starless, I mean?
Yeah, for Starless, I mean, I don't think, because a lot of, basically we can scale on rings, close and distant damage contributing to Thunderstruck in many cases. So that, our tempers and really the attack speed that can naturally come on rings are very valuable to us. I think the only use cases that are realistic for Starless, even after the buff, are issues where it's solving resources. So I'm looking at it for Tornado Druid and potentially Boulder Druid as well. I think those are probably the best fits for a Druid. But if you're using it just as a damage multiplier, very often you can get more mileage out of just a legendary ring.
Yeah. I guess that's always going to be a problem until we see something for the uniques, or the Uber uniques in that case. That can.
I'm kind of surprised about this, Connors, what you said with Necromancer. It's like, what kind of tempers are you missing that are like so valuable that they would outclass the Starless, even with something like a Bone Spear?
I love the resource generation, which also helps me quite a lot with just staying at the top of the maximum essence, basically. So you can also say, like, yeah, the 50% resource cost reduction does basically the same, but as long as we are generating enough resource and also get the additional aspect while also having the additional 2 other affixes next to Lucky Hitchets in Bone Spear's case, for example, we can still profit off of that more. So we would have to give up an aspect like, what is the least one that we would give up for that? Maybe Conceited on the Bone Spear, if we're talking about that, Edge Masters. And then it's not really, it's a 22% damage multiplier difference, or 25% damage multiplier difference, depending on which one we're looking at. And giving up the other 2 stats that we need, for example, in my case, in Hardcore Max Life, attack speed is quite nice on the new Bone Spear. I don't see Starless guys winning out, because if you have the resource cost reduction, I'm more so interested in generating the resource more than reducing the base cost to stay at maximum resource, if that makes sense.
I see. Yeah, I think for Rogue we have a similar-ish problem. Like, those builds where Starless guys would be good usually also want ring tempers. For example, Starless guys could be really good in an imbue focus build where you want to keep up the resource and you spam core skills, which are imbuable. And that usually means that you want either plus imbue, like +3 cold imbue, for example, as a ring temper, or you're playing it in the combo point focus build, and there you would want puncture resource generation to be able to sustain a 1-to-1 rotation. That's very technical for those people who don't play Rogue, I guess. But there's a temper that gives you basically 3 combo points instead of 1 combo point when you masterwork it fully and have, I think, 2 masterwork crits on it. And with that, you basically can maintain a tighter rotation of using your basic skill to generate a combo point and then using your core skill to spend the combo points. And in these builds, you usually play imbuements, and there's also the imbuement, the +3 imbuement thing that you could get on the rings, and Starless guys obviously cannot be tempered. And then you have to basically make a judgment call. Okay, is the 50% bonus that we get from Starless guys, which is multiplicative, now better than the plus imbuement charges that you could be getting instead? And there's a few builds where this is the case, and then there's a few builds where it's not the case. Funnily enough, Starless guys is a very good choice in Andariel's Rogue, because you're playing Flurry anyway, and keeping up the 3 seconds is the 3-second buff from Starless is basically the same thing as keeping up the 3-second attack speed buff you get from Flurry. So in such a build, it is very, very good to play that. And I think Voodie is probably experimenting with Starless in Twisting Blades as well, because I remember us talking about it. So yeah, maybe you can get some insight to that as well.
Yeah, I mean, as a general idea, Starless Guys is just very powerful for any very resource-hungry build, right? Any build that wants to spam a skill as much as possible. So we talked about Bone Spear, we talked about... there's like certainly options, for example, on Sorks as well, where, if you really want to spam, let's say, Ball Lightning all day long, I mean, it's a very resource-hungry build as well. And depending on what you lose and what you gain, especially if you can make use of the resource part of Starless Guys, it is a really good option, no matter what, I think, because it just adds so much damage as well, which usually outclasses like a generic aspect. So yeah, it comes down to that. And in fact, for Twisting Blades, I have actually done a rework. There's actually a version of Twisting Blades that I made that is actually an inner side build. That is maybe not better than the Calm Points version, but maybe close enough for people that really don't want to play Calm Points and don't want to go for that, because you still have, for example, 2 tempers available on the other jewelry slot. So you can actually make the perma poison imbue work with something like that on rogues. And I think there's other options on rogue as well. I think it's a pretty fascinating item because we don't have the infinite amount of imbuements that we usually are used to in Season 4 currently when we have Starless Skies. And you could actually think about actually playing, for example, physical builds on rogue and just not go for any imbuements and just really dive in with like, one-to-one cycles of puncture with the resource generation and just like a mega attack speed, and you can sustain your resources with Starless Skies and I like that. So I've been working on some of those setups and see what will happen with that.
A rogue without imbuement.
Yes,
Yeah.
Can you believe it, man?
Yeah, that sounds
I mean,
unusual for sure.
It works. I'm definitely something that I want to try as well in the future. So yeah.
Yeah, there's certainly cool stuff. I really like Starless Skies. It's a very good item. And it works on many builds, so this is also nice. It doesn't have to be necessarily the best choice, but you can kind of like throw it on many builds, and it will just kind of work, and you will feel good. So that's great about it, I think.
Yeah. So I wanna move on to the next topic, and more so to the more class changes, more insights from everyone. Welcome for sure. It's not just Condis speaking when we're talking about Barb, for example, but that's exactly what I want to start out with. You said before, Condis, that you are already working on the Whirlwind Barb, and trying to fit in Tyrael's Might. And where do we see Whirlwind Barb? Can we actually expect not only a Helltide farmer, but also maybe do it very well in the pit for at least speed farming purposes?
As for today, the highest I tried was 102 that I did in 2 minutes 30 seconds. Definitely boss died way too fast, so it can easily push higher and speed up to 1/10. My gear is 8 out of 12 and still not even good tempers. I believe I have all the tempers necessary, so it's like at the 70% of the power, I would say. But yeah, 1/10 speed in under 3 minutes should be possible. 1/20s with perfected greater affixes, maybe. It's really powerful. The Gushing Wounds combo with Berserker Ripping, probably some even bugs there, as it's like Barb. The main issue or the main abuse is that you can temper all the vuln, all the crit tempers from Rogue on your weapons, and you have 2 two-handers, you have 2 one-handers, and it's getting out of hand really fast. So yeah, I believe you can even go to Uber Bosses with this Barb. I did some Uber Bosses earlier, and we went 2 Flay Barbs and 2 Bash Barbs, and we insta-faced Duriel. So yeah, their health is very, very low now. So with Whirlwind, I'm gonna talk to Snail because he's the Whirlwind boss on Maxroll. But yeah, this Whirlwind will make it to the top.
That's actually surprising to me. Like, of course, Gushing Wounds, Berserk Ripping and stuff like that makes it viable on single target, but I wouldn't have expected that it's doing that well on a boss, actually. Like, that surprises me a little bit, to be honest.
I did try Lilith before the patch, and it's doable on my gear, but I wouldn't try it just yet without the Masterwork gear and etc. After the patch, everyone can do that.
Well, the question is that like based on just the Gushing Wounds in action, or is there any hope for, let's say, playing this with Unconstrained or something in the future potentially? Is that like, where's the main damage coming?
The main damage is, of course, the flat damage from Twisters, that you scale with Gushing Wounds, you scale out of crit with Grandfather. My build runs on 5 Uber uniques now because I'm playing also with Selig. You want the 4 Uber variant for maximum damage with like heavy-handed cut to the bone amulet. It gives you even way more damage. Like if you would get GA heavy-handed, then it's like way more damage. You have Hemorrhage that multiplies all your Venom damage on your tree. So you get a little bit of vulnerable damage too, and most damage comes from the Berserker Ripping, Gushing Wood, Hemorrhage. I believe you can't scale with unconstrained like a normal barb would. It's the interaction with Grandfather, doubling your crit, then the critting, the bleeding damage is scaled with Hemorrhage. Yeah, it's just multiplier on multiplier on multiplier on multiplier.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds
Balanced.
sounds like a barb, to be honest. No, but it's like I was on the fence of making a barb, but Whirlwind is definitely one of the builds that I really enjoy in an ARPG. I just hope that it's not going to be the best build that you can play. I think there should always be a little bit more involved in the best build that you can play than just holding down right click. But yeah, I don't know how you guys think about that.
Well, it's funny because you don't hold the right click. You want to get it on the other skill and just spam it, because then you refresh it and you refresh the twisters from the aspect and you refresh the tutorials. So the gameplay is, I mean,
You're basically stutter stepping with it then, right?
yeah, it's not good for your hand. I wouldn't recommend playing this build too long. You're gonna suffer.
Realistically, people are going to use a macro for that, Monka 2S. So
Yeah, I'm not using it. I'm playing it the right way, but for Omega Speeds, I'm holding it down. I'm not trying to have my
I think
wrist broken.
the main problem with that is that, either you effectively are forcing people to use a macro if they don't want to break their hands, or but it just like leads to like a bad gameplay experience if you want to do it manually, right? It's just like, okay, this is Whirlwind. You expect to just hold down the button, but the best way to play it is to not hold down the button and to spam the button instead, right? It's just kind of like some probably unintended interaction, in fact, that just allows you to reset the tick or whatever, to start the tick fresh and then get another proc. And this is how it works, right? And this is just kind of stupid, I think. So that's my opinion on that, at least.
Yeah, it's unintended, and I want it to be fixed.
Yeah,
It shouldn't work this way.
I don't know. I think this season is kind of hard on the hands in general. Heartseeker is definitely, I'm feeling the Heartseeker farm that I'm
people
doing.
were crying about the attack speed nerfs on the season start, but imagine that.
Yeah, that would have been.
Oh no.
Wait, why is Heartseeker hard on your hands? What are you doing?
I mean, I
You
need to
tap
right click.
slamming?
No, that's the thing. When I speed farm, I just tap it. I don't even stutter step a lot. I just hold down my force move button and then tap right click. It's way better to look at chat that way than play it normally with stutter stepping. It's way better. But yeah, it's like I feel the hand sometimes. I do have to be honest. But it's like I'm not complaining. I really like these high attack speed builds. I'm having a lot of fun. It's great.
Like coming from Puncture Twisting Blades, Heartseeker feels like you have to like click half the buttons. So yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Heartseeker this season, but I'm also glad to play other builds again. So it's like a decent build to play, like fun-wise for me.
Mm.
But I like other builds a bit more in Rogue, I gotta say.
When we are on the topic of rogues, actually, let me quickly let's pull that forward. Actually, I had this a little bit further down the list, but when we're on the topic of rogues, we talked about Twisting Blades, and Woody updating the Twisting Blade guide. I was actually a really heavy Twisting Blades enjoyer in season 1. I stepped away a little bit from Rogue due to the Necro duty, so I wasn't really keeping up with that. Is the buff really going to? Is it enough to bring it back to old glory, basically?
Well, I wouldn't really say old glory, because old glory means it was like the Omega build in the entire game, right? That, at least on rogue class, that everyone was playing, and we're not gonna get there again. But yeah, Twisting Blades is back, I would say. It's like, it's very good. It's not like the best rogue build. It's not like the best build in the game, but I think we ranked it in A tier now, and that is certainly a good ranking to have, I would say. And who knows, maybe there's going to be other updates in the future, right? Maybe there's going to be, some future item that somehow synergizes with it even better, and it's going to be like back on top for a season or something. But if you want to play Twisting Blades, you don't have to feel bad about it, and that's definitely a good change, I guess. The buff is very significant. I've reworked the update. I've reworked the planners, the guide, and everything. And there's like some new tech now with Starless and the puncture. So cool stuff there, and definitely it's going to be fun to play.
Yeah, when I was making the planner, like I was making a planner for Twisting Blades today, and I noticed that there's still some, let's say, there's a little bit of anti-synergy between a few things that Twisting Blades wants to do. Because, for example, as I mentioned earlier, the imbue conflicting with Starless, and then also conflicting with puncture resource generation, and it's when you're trying to gear for close quarters combat, then there's only the damage to crowd control temper. But there's no damage to crowd control affix that can roll on items. So you have to go. You have to go like a few suboptimal choices where you just opt for generic damage instead of, like with Heartseeker Victimize, you would go for vulnerable damage. But there's no such thing as damage to crowd control, which can innately roll on items. So a few things that feel like they're not entirely efficient, and especially like I feel like there's around 6 good glyphs to use, but you would have slots for 7 for Twisting Blades. So there's also a little bit of a thing which it just feels like there's a few rough edges for Twisting Blades, and then also the Twisting Blades temper not being super efficient at what it does. And with like Twisting Blades feels like it's at the point where with a few good buffs, more than what we saw right now, it would be in a very, very good spot.
Yeah, what we need is Twisting Blades returns twice temper, man. Let's go.
Let's go. Double Blades returns twice. Hell yeah, man. Oh, I love that.
That would be badass, man. Adam, if you're listening.
Or like a unique that's like basically including Blade Dancer into the base Twisting Blades is already, or like just changing Twisting Blades to include Blade Dancer like in its regular rotation that you don't need the aspect for. Something that would be amazing. Like, right?
Yeah. In fact, actually, this is something I've discussed another time on my stream. I would actually really love for a viable alternative to a Blade Dancer playstyle that focuses more on the returning blades. I would actually really love for Blade Dancer to become one of the upgrades of the skill itself. And, it's like one of the options you can choose, or you can do like something like, plus 200% damage to the returning blade or something like that. And then you play with that and no spinny blade. I would actually love that.
Yeah. Similar to Underlord Blades and Last Epoch, right?
Yeah, something like that, exactly. Where you have you open up a completely different playstyle with it, right? And this would be amazing, I think.
Yeah, when I was playing Rogue and Twisting Blades Rogue in Season 0 and Season 1, it was so cool having to think about where are your blades currently positioned and then trying to line up the returning blade portion of the damage. Well, the reward wasn't as crazy after a while, but that was definitely some mental APM that I really enjoyed doing. That was great, in my opinion. I had a blast there. Then for Rogue, I don't know. I love the concept of Flurry, but I feel like its biggest weakness with single target DPS or single target damage in general hasn't really been adjusted so much. Is there hope for Flurry?
Just use another lol.
Yeah, but that can't be the fix to every build nowadays, or to every rogue build. We need to.
You definitely need some single targets. That's like
Flurry has a lot of conceptual issues, and it's like I think the damage increase right now is kind of nice if you just want to farm Hellbites with it, but for like any high tier competitive pit pushing or something, Flurry is just not the thing to use as a damage skill. It has great utility from granting attack speed, which is basically the primary use for Flurry at the moment. We just slot it in a build that needs attack speed, essentially, and can afford to build combo points. And that's really about it, honestly, because Flurry just has conceptual issues that hopefully get fixed in the future.
Yeah. For Flurry specifically, it's also something I've discussed at length with my stream. So my idea would be to make it a bit like Jab from Diablo 2, the Amazon skill, where you just attack a few times around you, like, and it splits up the attacks between enemies in your range, basically. So this would like kind of like give it like natural single target, but also give it like some AoE capacity, basically, where, you know, let's say you do like 20 attacks all around you, and it's just split between all the targets. And I think that would be a really cool skill to have in Diablo 4 as well. You know, I really liked Jab actually back in Diablo 2 times, and Flurry could kind of fill that niche, I think.
Similar to Bushwhack from Seneschal Season 3. It had ability like that.
Yeah, something like that, exactly.
So they have this already in code, so no Flurry unique, Adam.
Just get the bushwhack
Easy.
aspect, basically.
No, not the aspect. Unique.
Or unique, yeah.
I mean, they just put a Flurry unique for the grenades, so yeah, maybe. No Flurry. Maybe Season 6, okay, Season 6.
I mean, one advantage of such a change would also be that you have extremely consistent like hit triggers, right? If you're talking about like triggering something like Andariels or like any other like, you know, procs that you care about triggering, you know, a certain amount, right? So this would be kind of cool about it as well. It's not like, okay, you have like 10 targets, you trigger a lot, and then you have a single target, you trigger nothing. But you not only have like consistent single target damage, but you also have consistent triggers, which would be kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, there's many things they could do with Flurry. It is not the only solution. There's, you know, other ways to, like, you know, maybe buff it single target or whatever, right? So they could do that. Maybe give it like a bonus for hitting only one target or only 3 targets, or there's like effects like that in the game as well. Who knows, right? But it doesn't have to be like a real rework of the entire skill. But yeah, right now it's just not really a thing.
Yeah, like right now I think it still sits well as a utility skill. Maybe we'll see more in the future.
That sounds good. How big would you guys see? I mean, this is probably like a hardcore POV problem that I have when I look at Rogue, and I saw not really a problem, but like a thing that I spotted with the Umbrus aspect now basically losing the restriction for having a marksman skill. How many doors does this open for the Rogue builds in general, especially the melee builds, right? Like, you don't need the puncture anymore. How big of an impact will this have on the builds in general, or twisting blades in that regard?
I can start on this, I guess. So my impression is, especially after like reworking the Twisting Blades guide, it doesn't necessarily change all too much, but it is really nice to have because you just have like more ways to trigger it. So for example, in the past, I used to have it always on the neck to have a higher chance because you only had puncture to trigger it on a Twisting Blades build. Now Twisting Blades itself does it, so I put it on a normal slot instead. You still get like, you know, a similar amount of shrouds, so that helps already. Melee builds in general just kind of like don't really have a way to get these shrouds otherwise. And of course, it opens up pure melee builds. So I talked about the inner sight Twisting Blades earlier with Star Disguise, and you know the only reason why this works at all is because of that change. Because now you can get the shrouds, and previously that was not possible. You just couldn't play a no generator or like maybe, you know, maybe here and there user generator kind of skill gameplay as a melee rogue because you needed the puncture to get the shrouds, and now you don't. And this is kind of cool. And potentially would even get to the point in the future where maybe we have other sources of shrouds, you know, not just on critting and not just on standing still from the enshrouding aspect, but there might be like another 1 or 2 shroud aspects in the future, and it's just kind of like a rogue thing, and there's like many ways to do it, and you just have to choose one of them, right? So this is kind of like where I hope we're going in the future. And yeah, then we could maybe have real melee builds, you know, to actually use like Invigorating Strike or Blade Shift. Like imagine that. So who knows? But it definitely opens up some design space for the future as well, I think.
Yeah, and exactly. That's exactly the point where I would want to add on to this, because I am very glad that I didn't nerf puncture, but instead I'm trying to find other ways to make the other basic skills useful, or maybe not make puncture as mandatory by, well, removing the main part why we use puncture, because puncture is so good at triggering Umbrus. It still is, don't worry about that, but now other basic skills could potentially take that spot too. So in that regard, I'm very glad that this limitation is lifted, And I think, as Woody said, it opens up design space. And I also think, well, okay, the thing is, in a build that is, it means like in a flurry build with grenades, for example, right? Each of the grenades can also proc lucky hits. We with the what's it called? It's not Scoundrel's Kiss. It's the other one, Saboteur Signet. Saboteur Signet, exactly. That allows your grenades also to proc lucky hits. So potentially your grenades could also give you Umbra stacks now, which would make a good case for not using Puncture if you have other means of generating combo points. Unfortunately, Puncture is still like the best thing to use if you play combo points, because there's the Puncture resource generation tab. Puncture attacks extremely fast, and you can reach a low frame per attack breakpoint. And it conveniently hits multiple targets and also makes it vulnerable. So yeah, but hey, in the future we might see cool upgrades for it.
So while you rogues are basically using 2 out of 3 of your class specializations, I think the what was the last name that reduces the cooldown? I forgot that one.
Preparation.
Preparation, exactly. Well, that one is currently flying under the radar. It's actually impressive how big the buffs are to all of the other rogue class specializations equivalents. For example, like Druid. I am not super keen on I'm not super into Druid. I played Shred last season, so I'm not very experienced when it comes to that. But Boiler, could you give us an insight or more explain how big these changes are going to be for the Druid when it comes to the class specializations?
Well, I mean, they buffed them pretty much across the board, right? I think there are some implications in the first set of boons with Advantageous Beast, giving additional movement speed. I think that'll primarily see use in leveling builds and maybe not more toward endgame builds. But it's kind of just buffs across the board. You've got increased critical strike chance from Scythe Talons, probably still doesn't outweigh Avian Wrath, the crit multi on the same line. The buffs to Iron Feather are nice, but, pretty generically good, and a lot of people were already running that boon generally. I think you have a little bit more choice on the third line now between Energize, Bolster, and
Obsidian
Pack
Slam?
Leader, depending on the build you're running. And then the Obsidian Slam nerf was just great for, builds that want to overpower in general. So, they're good. They're not game changers, given how far Druids are behind, but every little bit helps.
Every little bit helps. You talked about overpower now actually being a thing, and I'm a pulverize fantasy enjoyer. I like a bear that puts his his arms above his head and slams the ground, and everything flops over. How able am I going to be to do that with the new patch changes?
Oh, you're going to be able to do that. I'm doing it right now, actually. But
that's great.
Same, yeah.
Oh wait, Woody, you too, or what?
Yeah, I'm playing Pulver right now, leveling my glyphs.
Oh, that's great.
No, the pulverized buffs are great. It was in a pretty bad spot relative to other builds right now. Now, I mentioned kind of alluded to, Druids as a whole are a little bit lacking behind other classes right now. But the pulv nerfs are great, and I expect it to probably start performing at a similar level to this cluster of builds we have in low A tier. So Tornado, Nature's Fury, Landslide, and Hurricane, for example. I don't think it'll make it all the way to the top of Druid builds competing with Windshear, but the changes feel really good, and it's solid. Definitely passable to play. Good to speed farm on, for sure.
So I need to make a Druid basically now, or what's the verdict here?
Oh, I encourage everybody to make a Druid all the time.
Log in, man. That's really fun, actually. Like, I love Polarizer myself. I played it in season 2 and now again, and it feels great, man. Like, I have like a super potato Druid here, and like earlier I saw like a 67 million shockwaves just spam. Like, yeah, it's a really like gear that I've gathered in like, I don't know, a few hours gambling items. So
I have heard rumors of a 1 billion shockwave since the patch.
1 billion.
And I know that Pulverize is cleared up to 123 so far. There's really only been like one guy pushing it because of the state it's been in. He was up to 109 pre-patch. He's at 123 now. I'm looking like I'm probably going to clear this 120. So, it's there. It's doing stuff.
Oh man, that sounds really enticing. I gotta log in right after the podcast and make a Druid, I guess. because Pulverize is definitely one of the builds that I really want to play. Because I don't know, I think it's just cool if you have a bear that slams the ground and literally everything dies. That is super cool. Can I level with that?
It's one of my favorites. Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, that sounds great. And in the patch notes, I have another fantasy that I really love for druids: the rabies, poison, everything on the screen. I know it's a little bit copium to think that 25% is enough, but is there ever going to be a possibility of a rabies druid literally at the top or like near the top or viable? Or what would be the changes that you would like to see to make that happen, Boiler? Is there something on your mind when it comes to trying to make rabies a thing, right?
I'm afraid you might have to add a 0 or 2 for that. Look, it did okay last season, the Vault season. It was clearing T100 volts decently well. It is not now, and 25% is not saving it. It's clearing T100s, but at a slower rate than almost any other even Druid build. So we're quite a ways off on rabies right now.
Oh man, that's definitely something that I would love to see, because having the werewolves running around everywhere, poisoning everything, sounds like a great experience to me. I don't know. Feels like a good fantasy to have in the game to be able to play. But unfortunately not right now, as it seems. Is there any other build, Boiler, that I don't have on the map right now that we need to take a closer look at with the patch notes?
Generally speaking, there was a lot of buffs to the spirit boons that you alluded to, but also a lot of our passives. And with the exception of Pulverize, which got its own particular set of buffs, Druids across the board probably got 2, 3, maybe 4 tiers worth of damage. Based on the old tierings, of course, we're kind of still figuring out how the new scaling works. Honestly, intra-class, the order really hasn't changed too much, in my opinion. I think things will settle in about the same areas, with the notable exception of Pulverize getting a big bump.
Okay. So, well, I guess one build resurrected from the dead is a good thing, I guess, per class. That makes definitely something that Rogue has. Now, with the Druid Pulverize buffs, we also have that coming up, basically. I wanted to also talk a little bit more about Sorc, because there's not really what we have seen with Twisting Blades being resurrected. We don't really have the Pulverize stuff that is seen on the Sorc. But, well, apart from the Andariel's Visage Chain Lightning Sorc that we might actually see as soon as Andariel's Visage gets fixed, there's not...
Yeah, I wouldn't get my hopes too far up. It's still a Sorc, So.
Yeah. Since those buffs are not really present, I wanted to take a look a little bit at Sorc and actually talk about the buffs that we have here. So my first reaction when I saw Shatter in the patch notes at all was that it's going to get a very small buff at the very least, because we've seen what other people have been doing with especially with the 2-man stuff, clearing crazy high pit levels, and now it's actually buffed from 25% to 30%. Actually gearing the Shatter Sorc right now, and I am really looking forward to what I will be able to do in the future when it comes to clearing those 2-man pits on hardcore. So I'm really looking forward to how much of a buff that is going to be. Unfortunately, I wasn't really playing it before, but those buffs seem to be substantial. Is there any way in, Woody, from your side, for example, on the buffs in general for Sorc, or especially the Shatter key passive?
Well, the Shatter buff is kind of an interesting one because of how strong it is currently, thanks to various bugs. I'm not 100% sure how the bugs will work, but there's some pretty heavy double dipping going on, which is the reason why Firebolt Sorc has actually cleared anywhere in the 140s or something. Other than that, before that, the clears were 20 tiers lower or so before people started using the Shatter tag. And you would not really expect Shatter to be the thing to use without such bugs, I guess, for a push. maybe for some builds, but yeah, in general, probably not really, because you need to like, somehow get your boss damage as much as possible. So there's like something going on where Shatter can hit for like dozens of billions, and this is the only reason why it's actually so good. Then buffing it in that moment is kind of strange without a bug fix. So I'm very surprised that it did that, and I was like, okay, like why is that getting buffed right now? But maybe they already have it on the radar, and they just decided, okay, we're doing the buff now for whatever reason, and season 5 we're gonna fix the bug with Shatter, and this is basically it. So this is kind of like my expectation currently. And then I guess Shatter could have needed a buff. It's just like one of those key passes that is like so inconsistent, and one thing I really don't like in my builds most of the time is inconsistency, because sometimes it works like great, right? You make like a big pull, you have 10 elites all frozen, and then boom, everything explodes. And well, what happens is when you play with that is, well, the elites that live with like 5% HP left, you cannot kill them. You can stand there for like 2 minutes and try to finish off the last 5%, or you go find the next pack. And something like that is a bit of too extreme of a shift, I guess, in how good it can be depending on the circumstances, where it just won't help you at all against a single target, but then it makes your AoE damage explode, literally. I think that's maybe just kind of like a design issue of the whole thing. It is a cool effect, because when it happens, it feels amazing, but it also feels equally terrible when it doesn't happen, and then it's like awful. So I don't really generally like that too much, and I hope that's not necessarily the all-defining meta on this org for the future.
It's definitely ranked in S tier right now for a reason, because we actually see it clearing the highest stuff. I'm very excited what we can actually see in terms of numbers when it comes to pit clears for, well, Sorcs in general, but also in the 2-man, 3-man groups. I've actually seen Boiler also get in there and do some 3-man support Druid stuff, actually helping out and pushing that number higher. That's really interesting. I love when the community gets together and tries to throw their bodies at that really, really high challenge that the game gives us. So I'm really curious.
Yeah, I mean, certainly cool that you can do that, but I think also just like this Shatter thing, like as I mentioned, this inconsistency is just very high on this, right? Like there is just one single boss that you have any chance of even fighting, on a high tier. And I mean, other classes have a similar problem, I guess. So I'm not entirely sure how the fishing is like with the boss fights for like the all classes, but it gets worse with something like Shatter, I guess, where like not only the boss but also like the elite packs. If there's not enough like trash monsters around, then you can't shatter those, and then you can't kill the elites. If the elites don't die in one pop, then you have to skip them. It just kind of like feels bad, and for something like that to be played, and you need like the perfect storm. Like if you get the perfect run, then it's really good, and if you don't, then it's just awful. So this is kind of like where it's at, I think, with Shatter, and I don't like that too much, to be honest, to be like at least the meta.
So basically kind of get the band of possibilities a little bit closer together to make it feel a little bit
exactly
better, right?
Like I think it's fine that certain effects have like a high end and a low end of a range. Like it can be really good in this circumstance and it's kind of bad in another, but Shatter is probably the example in the game that is like by far the biggest range when it comes to the minimum and the maximum performance. So maybe it should be maybe tweak a little bit at least to make this a bit more consistent on both ends.
Yeah, especially like farming, like it's already bad enough when you can do 2 bosses with Heartseeker, and then Shatter can only do a single one. That's pretty crazy. But I honestly think from what I've seen, I've watched Mikuna a little bit play the build, at least he can farm more mob variants than Heartseeker can, so it kind of evens out, and the fishing is just still pretty crazy on Shatter and on Heartseeker. So yeah.
Well, I guess at some point with the pit or the greater rifts back in D3, it's always going to come down to fishing and who has the larger rod to actually be able to do the longer breath, to be able to actually farm out those high clears by assembling the best layout together with the best mob type and together with the best boss, right? So we kind of move towards that.
I mean, currently we don't really have like any reason to push high, right? There's no official leaderboard. Okay, we had a Maxroll leaderboard, and we will actually most likely have a second round of that later this season. So that's kind of cool. But
excuse me.
Yeah, get ready.
Announcement right here. Perfect.
The thing is just that it's also like not just okay for pushing, right? It's also like if you want to play that Firebolt build and you use Shatter, and you're gonna have a terrible time against almost every single boss because Shatter will do nothing, and then other bosses you're gonna kill it 10 times faster, right? You just have this insane range, and you don't even have to necessarily push to like 140 for that to matter. Like you're just gonna have this insane gap between like a farming tier where maybe Firebolt can comfortably farm, okay, like pre-patch, let's say, because we have the benchmark. I don't know, let's say you can farm 90s on a really good Firebolt sword, right? And you can push 150, that's like a gap of 60 tiers. And for other builds, the gap is maybe more like 20 or something like that, right? You have like this insane large gap between farming and pushing on the build like this because of this insane inconsistency and this high roll potential that you have. So I think this is just a bit too much. That's kind of the point I want to get at.
100% agree. I think that's really important. It's probably also not that fun to play when you think like, well, normally I'm doing 150s, but now I'm stuck here farming 61s, or in that case like 90s. That also doesn't really feel that well, right? Like you have that hammer, but you can't really use it. You can only use it when when the stars align, basically. It's kind of like a hit or miss sometimes. I definitely understand that. And last but not least, Necromancer. I actually do have to kind of like go into the Book of the Dead here a little bit more. We have seen basically +5 to everything that we had in the Book of the Dead, and it's it's actually really interesting because not only did we get the +5 to crit resistance all, which is going to come in very handy during leveling. It's going to solve quite a lot of problems, even make solving the problems even easier. But what's really interesting about that is actually that the sacrificial aspect is now basically a thing that you can consider, because before it was buffing the sacrifice bonuses by, let's just go with the Maxroll here, with 25%, and it's now actually 50%. So it basically went from an aspect that you were not really taking because there were definitely better options in terms of raw damage multiplier, to something that you can actually consider on quite a lot of builds. So I will definitely have to take a look here, but there's not really going to be a dethroning of the current S tier builds. They are basically Blight with the huge Ebon Piercer, where we also have some funky things going on, and of course the Shadow Minion or Minion Necromancer guide, although the Shadow Minion Necromancer pulled ahead a little bit during the start of the season or up until the mid-season patch, because it can make use of that additional blighted multiplier that, if you put that on the two-hander, gives you up to 240% damage multiplier, which obviously makes the build a little bit stronger than the Minion Necro in general. So Shadow Minion worked out ahead there. And funnily enough, all these buffs have not really any impact on the minion builds. So I'm really happy that they are kind of like lining up something to make the non-minion builds a little bit stronger. But I currently don't really see anything else really profiting off of the changes as much as the Blight Necromancer is. If you look at the numbers, it's basically a 17% damage increase, and Blight was actually pulling very, very good numbers. I was preparing the podcast, so I couldn't really have my eyes on Twitch and YouTube to see what someone with a completely decked out Blight build was already able to do. But I would definitely, if you guys haven't checked out the Minion Necromancer, the Necromancer this season in general, and you're not really a fan of the Minion playstyle, Blight is definitely a build that you can keep your eye on or should definitely try out, especially because the Ebon Piercer Amulet makes it extremely interesting because you're shooting out quite a lot of projectiles, and if you're a fan of dot damage, then, well, that's your build, your go-to build for sure this season when it comes to Necromancers in general. Then next up, as a next topic, when we go through the patch notes, and we've already kind of like talked about it a little bit here, the endgame changes in general. Health and damage reduction in Pit, primarily below level 60, have been reduced. So, guys, what are the first impressions here? Let me know.
Too easy.
Alright. Yeah, it's like well, tier 120 now is basically tier 105 pre-patch. So on the top end, we also see like a reduction. I personally would not be surprised if we see a tier 150 row clear in this patch with Heartseeker. So
That's pretty wild,
cool
actually.
it's kind of cool that you can get the title though, but well, we'll see how that plays out. But I'll personally definitely try to push it a little bit higher now that there's more possibilities. But I think it's crazy that we're probably like speed farming 120s now instead of 100s. Will mean more Netherian. I think 121 is 80 Netherian instead of 60 and 59 for an 100.
Wow, we're playing.
Huh?
Yeah, it's Neath Iron, maybe. This is not Nefarian from Blackwing Lair.
Oh, Neath Iron. Excuse me. Excuse my pronunciation here, but thank you for correcting me. But yeah, so less time spent farming that to reset Masterworks and praying for the right proc. So yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
I would say that it's just basically an arbitrary number anyway, right? It's like the same thing that we had in Diablo 3 with Greater Rifts. Like there were like, patches and like certain builds got buffed or like everyone got buffed and certain patches made Greater Rifts easier, and in the end it's just an arbitrary number that you see in on the right side of the screen. And it doesn't really have any meaning by itself, it's just like, okay, can all the builds in the game kind of end up somewhere in the same ballpark? And is that like a good number to reach, I mean, there's like, for example, some considerations involved here with, for example, how long does it take to even unlock a proper tier that you want to be farming, right? Like if you start like a fresh season, when, you have to go to like pit 150 and you have to go pit by pit by pit and only unlock 3 at a time. Like do we actually want everyone to like go through it and like unlock 50 runs, in a row or something like that instead of only 20, for example, right? So this is where that actually has any kind of gameplay impact. And then of course, the Neath Iron farm, I guess no one is going to be sad about getting more Neath Iron, I guess. So that's kind of cool. So in the end, how high we go as a push doesn't really matter, I'd say. It does matter, like, okay, how long is the grind to get your stuff done? And that is just getting a bit faster now. And I think that's okay, because the Neath Iron grind can be quite long, especially if you try to really go all in with, like, masterworking the right items to perfection and stuff like that. That is quite a grind, because you have to reset potentially dozens of times on a single item. And that's is usually like, an hour or 2 of grinding per reset, right? Maybe if you're really fast, like sub 1 hour, but yeah, it's still quite a lot either way. And that just helps, to people like have a bit of a more reasonable expectation to actually get what they want. And that's good.
Yeah, to add to that, I think it should be like 30 minutes per reset now, if you're like very efficient about it. And like, but it's still.
I mean, you're talking about a reset at 12, right? So this is.
Yeah,
reset. You don't always go to 12 anyway, right? So.
Yeah, if you don't go to 12, then it's actually probably more like 15 minutes per reset. Maybe, yeah, like 5 pit runs, maybe 6. That's fine, honestly.
For me, for the resets, actually the Neath Iron is not the problem anymore. I'm at a point where I need to farm Rawhide.
Legion event, brother.
Because
Legion event drops like 1,000.
I run out of Rawhide now after resetting Masterwork Tempers like crazy for the Sorc. I'm done now. I have basically everywhere 2 GA crits, 2 crits on the GA CDR, but yeah. It's
nice.
like I'm not really on the Neath Iron grind at the moment. I need to gather the Rawhide. But yeah, it certainly helps quite a lot. I've done quite some runs now, and it looks like I just make 300 Neath Iron more per hour, basically, which is definitely very welcome when I need to farm up 5k to max out the Sorc in the next future, basically.
Now, how do you enjoy farming Whispers to actually use that Neath Iron?
I do have 1 billion gold, so I'm good.
Oh, look at this guy.
What? On hardcore?
Yes.
I think you're cheating.
What do you mean cheating?
How do you get 1 billion gold on hardcore, man? I can't even believe that it's 1 billion gold in all of hardcore combined.
I have 500 million.
Have you seen Oogie? Oogie at some point had 2.5 billion. That's crazy. He introduced me to the dark arts, and he showed me that I need to sell items. And I had quite a lot of very high treasure stuff in my stash. I just needed to sell those. There were some very, very good amulets that I was able to sell. And I basically...
And how do you like replying that you are playing on HC, not Ace, not softcore?
Oh no, it's a meme. It's a meme on my Twitch stream already. It's like I control C this every time. Hello, I'm playing hardcore, comma, you too. It's like it's the same thing. It was awful. But what I did is I forced myself through it because I needed all of the gold to be able to get the Sorg to where it is now. And it was hard. But I mean, if you're just Control Ving the sentence that you're playing hardcore to literally 60 messages, it's not that bad.
Yeah, I closed off the site after 10 times.
Yeah, no, I did the same, but I forced myself again to do all this stuff, and it's actually insane, like how much gold you can actually get. But yeah, there is some, I don't know, there's for sure some shady stuff going on because there is people that buy stuff for 100, 200 million, and I'm like, I don't know, I've been playing like for 10 hours straight since the season started, and I was barely above 100 million without doing like trading. But obviously, if you trade quite a lot and you find quite a lot of good items, it looks like you can actually amass quite a good fortune, which I was able to do myself. So maybe other people are just as lucky as I am when it comes to finding GA skill amulets.
Yeah, it's the same softcore. If you want to buy items in softcore, like you have gold and buy items in softcore, you need to sell items. That's like, that's the only way to get there.
I unfortunately I ignored the fact that trading is going to make quite a lot of gold for way too long, to be honest.
Yeah, it's also crazy. Like in softcore right now, the gold inflation is just crazy. You can't buy a single item below, like a single GA item goes for like 300 to 500 million.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I literally just, on my row, I had 2 mules full of 1 GA, 2 GA, like rogue weapons. And I was just like, I can get like 2% more here on that temper. So I just literally bricked 50 of them just for fun.
Oh my god!
Yeah, that's the hardcore economy, my friend. Yeah, you can't sell stuff.
Brother.
I have like 30 weapons with GA crit or vuln. Maybe more than 30.
I just needed to clean up my stash space, man. I can't sell this stuff on hardcore to anyone. So
no, it actually works, Woody. But I had to. I skipped a day of streaming for that because I'm not gonna stream selling items. That is awful. That's
maybe you find buyers when you stream it.
That's actually.
I'm trying, man.
It's actually very interesting because people actually gave me a discount or wanted to give me a discount or like give me stuff for free. I'm like, no, this is not okay. This is completely new for me and it's kind of weird. I don't know if I like it or not. It's
I mean, with mutuals, whenever someone needs a weapon, like, oh, Condis, do you have like GA crit on your sword? Of course, you can take like 3 of them.
Yeah, exactly. Like here, make sure you don't break all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, like I dropped GA Bash earlier. I just gave it away.
Yeah, at this point, I'm just like also just vendoring 1 GA like weapons and stuff like that because I don't know what to do with them. So.
Yeah, but didn't you have 1 billion as well at some point, Woody?
Yeah, I'm not poor. I have 600 mil, but 600 mil can disappear in like 10 minutes if you want, right? So it doesn't make me comfortable, let's say.
Ah.
Especially when I have like plans, I want to play the Polarized Druid now, I want to play the Flay Barb, I want to play the Whirlwind Barb, I want to go back to make the TB Rogue, and so on. There's a lot of stuff I still have planned here, so.
I have 6 barbs on season, and I want to make next. I have no character slots.
And I'm just sitting here in softcore wondering how you guys are all so broke.
How much do you have right now, Boiler?
Oh, I've been spending lately, so I only got 2.7 bill.
I mean, I can feel that I was at 10B before I started buying Darius items, so.
Yeah.
10 billion?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But I do trade a lot. Like,
I almost don't trade at all, actually. The route I went for softcore especially is just doing carries. Whichever kind you'd prefer. You can do Nightmare Dungeon carries or pit carries, or what I did was Tormented Duriel carries, particularly early, are very profitable.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
they give you gold for you to kill Uber Duriel? What the hell?
Yeah, and they bring the mods, man. Can you believe that?
That's crazy.
What is softcore?
I get 3 runs and plus gold. What do you think
No
about that?
way.
That is like unthinkable, man, for hardcore.
We have like one Uber Duriel every 2 days.
No way, you get 3 Duriels and gold? Oh my god.
Oh, we usually do
insane,
sets of 5 or 10, so I don't know.
How much gold do you get per Duriel run that you do with 3 people carrying? Or being carried?
Oh. So,
At the
like I
start
said,
of the
usually,
season. Let's say at the start of the season.
I usually do, like, if I'm doing a set of 5, and I'll buy the mats, right? I'll go out of my way to buy the mats and provide the mats so they don't have to bring them, usually. But then I charge, more for the mats and the carry. So, low end, $250,000 for 5 runs. Or, sorry, $250 million. High end, $500 million.
Oh my god.
Depending on the time in the
What?
market for mats.
XDD
Crazy.
Corpa. That is
now
insane.
you know what you're missing out on Connix.
Oh no. Why are we
I'm
trying?
never playing SC.
I'm not playing soccer as well, but like that is insane. Those
Of course, there's an entirely different economy.
Yeah, it's a whole different game, man. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like
There
the things
is
I hear
one,
that, like my viewers also telling me, like, they find like a 3J item, they're selling it for 11 billion gold, man. Like not too long ago, you couldn't even hold 11 billion gold. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's true.
That is insane. That is insane to me. I tried selling carries at the start of the season. It was especially easy with Holy Bolt Necromancer. But I was just like, yeah, whatever. I'll just participate. It's fine. Like I can't take gold for that. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Hardcore is very different when it comes to that for sure. But
I'm happy to find 4 people for Uber runs.
There's a question in my chat that maybe you can talk about real quick, which is why is the economy that way in hardcore? And I think the main reason for that is simply like number 1, smaller player base, and probably maybe number 2, kind of related to that, is like more SSF kind of player base, right? Like people just farm their own stuff and use it. And I guess number 3 is just like no RMT, or like maybe a little bit, but way less at least than like people that want to pay real money probably want to not do it on hardcore because they can just lose potentially hundreds or thousands of dollars when something happens, right? So they obviously don't want to do that. So this is why there's like less boarding, less gold inflation, less people to sell to, less people to buy from, and so on, right? So this is kind of like why that is.
Yeah, if you can lose an item, then it's less valuable.
We can see it with the Stygian stones. Yeah, it was crazy to me. On softcore, I've heard prices of 40 million. On hardcore, that's 11. And it's kind of like the other way around when it comes to, there is definitely way less available on hardcore when it comes to Stygian stones, because less people definitely push to the higher top ends, right? That definitely, you farm just way less Stygian stones in general. So naturally you would think it's worth more, but it's not worth more because people associate, or it's probably also a high chance that you are going to lose your character whenever you are going to do your tormented stuff on hardcore, right? If you can't find a carry, if you do it with your 3 friends, there's going to be a chance you are going to lose the character. So it's actually funny that we get to profit off of the very low Stygian stones cost. I'm very looking forward to that project that is coming up, where we are going to get together with 4 people and just annihilate a full patch worth of tormented bosses at some point. That's going to be interesting. Yeah. Okay. Speaking of tormented bosses, minus 30% HP. I haven't done one since the patch, but who has done one? You said
people need to get good. People need to get good because a game with nerfs like that will not live that long. It's tremendous. I hate this nerf. Like it's like season 2 Duriel. It's no. We are doing Uber Duriel level 200 faster than in season 2 we were doing a level 100. They have too low life. They need to have more life. It's very bad.
Yeah, like the thing of that is that there's zero knock out from anything if you can't accomplish the tormented or the tormented boss fights, right? You don't miss out on anything. It's only more efficient. You get do it a bit faster, and whatever, right? So I'm really surprised that they did that change, because there's not really a reason to do it in the first place, right? It's literally just to like make the boss fight a bit more engaging, use your mats faster, and if you have a character strong enough to do that, then fine, right? But it's not really anything you earn from it that you can't otherwise earn already. So that's very strange to me that they did that change as well. I'm also kind of on Condis' side there.
Yeah, I was very sad that the tormented bosses got nerfed. I mean, if the season is this far advanced, you are going to kill them very, very easily. But in the first week and the first 2 weeks, they were a challenge, and I had quite a lot of fun actually thinking about doing that. But the problem is, and it's being pointed out in chat as well, you need them for the season journey, and it looks like people were not able, even with the availability of carries, weren't even able to defeat the tormented bosses. Which, yeah, I guess Condis worded it a little bit drastically. Yeah, there you go.
No, I wouldn't say that, but I mean, there's an easy solution to that. You can just remove them from the season journey. How about that?
Yeah, that's also
they don't need to be on the season journey in the first place, and then you don't have to nerf them.
100%. Yes, I fully agree. That would have been my solution there. 100%. Is there how crazy is it over on softcore? Do you literally one bonk them now?
100%.
Well, as soon as he's staggered with Heartseeker, at least he's dead. So it's like, and if you go like for a super fast stagger build where you stagger him in like with 3 rogues in like 2 to 3 seconds, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Even on a druid now, I'll be mad if he burrows.
Okay, that's tremendous. Yeah, I was definitely shocked when I saw this, and I'm not really happy. I'm looking forward to the session that we do. It's going to be a little bit faster, but I like them how they were, to be quite fair. Really, I don't know. Removing them from this.
We need a ruthless Diablo 4 mode, man. That would be something.
That's just a question for developers. How much content should be like the pinnacle content that's not achievable by all people? Should Uber bosses be able to be done by all people or not?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the idea. I thought that tormented bosses are the challenge. That eventually we're gonna trivialize with really good characters, but at least they are, not like you just walk in and you push them over on like, the first week of the season or something. But now we're kind of getting there again, especially with power creep. Like we had like an insane power creep patch, and on top of them, they made the bosses easier. And then next season comes even more power creep, right? So it's kind of like why are they doing the nerf in the first place? Like it goes into 2 opposite directions, and we're gonna be in season 2 all over again, just with more loot per boss.
Like that's a cool challenge. We start our softcore characters because they are fresh, and we have 10 hours to kill Uber boss level 200.
Yeah, it's probably doable. Solo,
That
with all the knowledge about builds, if I go like Flay Barb, I can do it, I believe, yeah. I mean, I need a rogue to make a Flay Barb, so that's the problem. But yeah.
You have like 2 hours to level the rogue, get some temper recipes, it's fine.
Yeah. It's a rough change for sure. I mean, the more beautiful solution would have probably been that we would have had it removed from the season journey and then kept that difficulty of the tormented bosses or Uber bosses, and actually have a challenge maybe for the first week or 2, and then as soon as not only power creep but also as soon as the season progresses, it is going to get more and more easy to defeat the bosses in general. So I'm kind of happy we all agree on that one, that we don't like it, but maybe it's also a little bit hard for us to assess where the casual player base is and how they are going to feel about it. It's a little bit hard to speak
business
to them.
model is crumbling, man.
Yeah.
Unlucky.
That would be good.
It's okay. The margins are good anyway.
The thing is, like, do people actually feel bad about not being able to take down the Tormented Bosses? Like, that's what I'm wondering right now, because there is no reason to do that. Okay, let's ignore the season journey for a second, right? But technically, there's not really a reason to farm any of those Tormented Bosses. They don't give you anything that you can't get anywhere else, because you can just farm the normal version, which is already, like, you know, the easy mode way to get the uniques that you want. You can get your Shaco, you can get whatever you want, right?
Exactly.
So, does anyone feel bad that they couldn't solo a Tormented Boss or something like that, for example? Like, it seems kind of strange to me.
Well, maybe. I mean, it's like, if you're thinking about the very casual player who maybe doesn't have all the gear and is still maybe even still leveling up, you know, like level 80 or something, and doesn't have that much time to play and doesn't play with efficient groups to get to level 100 in 5 hours, then yeah, maybe they see their favorite streamer kill the Uber boss in like no without much effort, and they're like, I want to do this too, but I can't, and maybe they're sad about it. Yeah, definitely imagine that.
I mean, I believe it's more of like Blizzard idea. Like they have they have the data, and okay, only 10% of people does the Uber Tormented Bosses. We want the number to be 20%, so they nerf it. I haven't heard a single complaint that Uber Bosses are too hard and should be weaker. I haven't heard that complaint in all the season.
Actually, me neither. A very good solution that, or I don't know if it's a very good solution, but a solution that, for example, other or like MMOs have, where they have the absolute pinnacle of content be extremely hard for the first week, or the first 2, 3, 4 weeks maybe, and then they get nerfed patch after patch after patch and become more accessible to the casual player. I don't know if this is something that is, maybe that is that, but that would also have to be reverted at some point for the next boss that is coming up or for the next season. But I doubt we will actually see a revert here. But I was hoping that maybe something like this would actually happen, where it just gets more accessible after half of the season, which I think would be totally fine for all of us. I think what we are basically complaining about right now, or having are a little bit scared of, that they are going to be too easy at the start of season 5 and even become more easier because there is additional power creep, right?
Yeah, it's kind of strange to me. Also, like, just the fact that, you know, we get player buffs, right? Everyone got a buff in this patch, and we're gonna get more buffs in the next season, and they're gonna fix more builds that are currently trash in the next season, you know, and so on, right? So yeah, okay, if you make a flurry rogue, or if you play, like, I don't know, like an incinerate sword, okay, you're not gonna have the best time against the tormented boss, but those builds eventually will also start shining, right? And yeah, it's kind of strange, I think. Maybe eventually you can buff the bosses again, right? When, like, maybe at the point where, like, every build has, like, I don't know, let's say an arbitrary number, like 50 million DPS or something on a good setup or whatever, then you could say, okay, at that point, time to kill for tormented boss is like 20 seconds on a bad build, right? And so basically insta on a good build, and then you would say, okay, maybe you should buff the tormented bosses again, or something like that. Yeah, thanks to power creep. So as long as they keep it, like, somewhat in line with, like, the power creep that we experience with the players, the pit kind of does it naturally, because pit has a scaling mechanism. The bosses don't, and so they have to, like, manually adjust the bosses, I guess, you know, season through season.
I mean, maybe they also want to bring builds a little bit down in terms of power, like after the builds are mostly bug fixed, like Victimize, for example, or I don't know how much of strength decreasing bugs we have in other classes. But let's take away Heartseeker. Which build would be like the next go-to build to go bonk Duriel, like Uber Duriel? Rapid Fire, maybe, if you spec into the one-shot build, yeah, but if you don't do that, do you really kill him that fast?
No, even without doing the one-shot combo, you stagger him, you kill him, I'm pretty sure, on Rapid Fire.
Okay, so. Yeah. Fair enough.
So there's definitely builds that can do insane damage that I don't really see getting nerfed anytime soon. So Rapid Fire is definitely one of them. Okay. Rapid Fire literally just got a buff this patch. So, I mean...
Yeah, it's actually one of the builds that is still on my list. I wanted to wrap this up with the rapid fire questions from chat. So if you guys, even the Polish listeners, Connis is going to be our translator here. If you guys have any questions when it comes to the mid-season patch or also some generic stuff like, I don't know, in terms of bosses, feedback on the discussion for the Tormented Uber Bosses, maybe there is a point that we didn't really, weren't able to think about, please point them out. So everyone keep an eye on the chat, and maybe you can pick a question that sounds good and could maybe be answered very briefly, but you guys have to pick. Let's see. Scaling mechanic for tormented bosses. Is that something that we could, like a pitch system, but for tormented bosses? How does that look like? Any ideas?
Sounds like a bad idea to me, honestly, if you ask me. Like, I would like to have, like, okay, this is the boss, you take it down, you have completed the challenge. I kind of like the idea of that. You don't have to scale. And after, like, killing each boss, like, 100 times, they're also not necessarily, like, you know, that exciting or something, right? It's like, okay, you do it, and that's it. So they're exciting for a while, and they're, like, a nice challenge, but I don't want to have, like, a scaling system necessarily. But there should definitely be, like, some challenge involved, and I feel like they're just slowly taking out that challenge. Or not even slowly, actually. So.
Yeah, pretty fast, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's kind of like loses the flavor, right? Like you are killing the boss. Well, I killed the boss now, but there is 10 harder versions of it, and you're doing the same thing over and over again, just with increased numbers. It kind of loses the flavor a little bit of killing it, right?
Exactly. We already have two versions. Like we have an easy mode and a hard mode, and the hard mode should actually be hard. How about that, you know? So that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, and it would be even better if the hard mode has like more attacks or does something more than just the stacks of debuff. But yeah, that's a lot of development too.
Yeah, that's also pretty hard. Like, you know, they probably won't put a lot of effort into a game mode or a harder version that, in this case, maybe only like 5% of the player base even sees, right? Like, we would love to see that, but, you know, like, the effort for the reward ratio is not really correct for, unfortunately, not really correct for the absolute pinnacle of content, right? That's what other games also struggle with.
I have a topic from chat, which is tempo durability. Favorite topic of everyone this season, I guess. So maybe you want to talk about that?
We need to break items. Breaking items equals good.
Oh, that's a
And
hard
now I explain
way of,
that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a rough take.
Yeah.
Well, it's the part of the grind, right? Whenever if all items are deterministic to be good, then there is no point in grinding. If I can just sit in town and click the item 100 times for it to be better, then it's bad gameplay. If I have 5 tries, then I say fuck and go and fight monsters again.
I mean, I can definitely see that being a thing in solo self-found, where you like, you know, you're not trying to. Obviously, you're trying to get the good gear, right? But you're not always going to get it. But in a trade economy where you potentially want to buy like really good items and then you break them, it feels kind of bad. And also,
then you can buy more. It's trade.
Yeah, but sure. But the thing is,
In trade, it's easier. In trade, it's easier.
When you get a good item, you're missing that kind of thing that excites you because you're like, oh my god, I dropped the.
It is
3D
exciting.
item.
It's Gamba. If I break the item or not, it's more exciting that I can break the item. If I can't break the item, then it's not exciting.
I feel mostly.
I'm like quite the opposite. I'm quite the opposite.
That's an interesting take because I'm personally more like, well, let's temper excitement until I temper the item. You know.
You just will be frustrated that I have to temper item 100 times to get the best roll possible. But if you have only 5 tempers, then you will be like, I break it, let's go again. But for like infinite, I'm not saying that, okay, let's bump from 5 to 20 and players can temper more. If you have like infinite, then you will just click spam until you have the perfect roll. And that's the worst gameplay possible.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to add on that as well, I really like bricking items as well, because it's kind of like you flush them out of your stash, regularly. It's like you farm for a few hours, you
What
collect
is
your,
this?
5 1GA items or something, and then you go to the blacksmith, and then you start bricking them, and then they go straight to salvage, right? And this is what I really like about this. You don't hold on to like 1,000 items in your stash, because, well, you just try at some point, go to the blacksmith, and, well, they will be deleted or they will not be deleted after that. So this is like what I really like about the bricking of items, honestly, myself.
Yeah,
And the
maybe
thing is
my view
also
on that.
yeah, like another thing about this is also that no one needs greater affixes for anything, right? There's no real reason to have them, Okay, they make you stronger, but why do you need that power? To go like 2 tiers up in the page when you have like, yeah, there's a ladder, yeah, of course, and the ladder should reward people that grind out perfect gear and play the best, right? So you want to have like a mix of both these factors, and one of the factors is of course the grind. If you make the grind too short and you can't break your items, then it's just not really an exciting grind, and then it's just it's kind of like nothing to go for, nothing to farm. At least with bricking items, there's always a reason to keep playing and try to get better loot. And again, I like that. And most of my gear ends up being like, right now I have like mostly 0 GA items equipped, and maybe 1 GA here and there on my pulverized Druid, because I just made it, and okay, now I'm gonna grind. Eventually I'm gonna upgrade it to like, everything has like 1 GA. Maybe I get lucky and have like 2 GA on 1 or 2 pieces, and this is how I make my characters. This is actually how every of my character has been this season. Speaking as someone who just found a triple, by the way. And it's just, why do you want those greater affixes, right? It doesn't really make a difference to have like 500 more life on your item, or have like 40 more decks or something like that. I think it's kind of like people are overvaluing how much impact a greater affix has. And they just kind of want to have perfect gear because that's what they're used to from, I don't know, Diablo 3 or something, where, you just get a primal item and that's it or something. But personally, I really enjoy that every single one of my characters is completely scuffed on all accounts. I love that actually, because there's always a better item to find, and it just keeps it exciting.
I mean, we can agree to disagree here, because I personally feel like, especially on Heartseeker Rogue, there's a few items where a greater affix makes you hit a new breakpoint. And that is actually really, really important to have, then, to reach a lower frame per attack breakpoint, for example, or a lucky hit breakpoint or something.
Or like roll one more item with one attack speed roll, right? You can just put another attack speed roll.
There is just none. You have all the slots covered.
What do you mean? You have access to the softcore community with your 10 billion
You can
gold.
trade and buy it.
Just buy 7 more. What are you talking about, Mippy?
Yeah, but if each of those items costs 20 billion, you can't buy 7 of them.
Yeah, well.
So farm more and buy them. More.
But either way, we're talking about honestly, a very, very high level of optimization here, right?
Yeah. If maybe my view would be different if the pit ladder that we had wouldn't have been restricted to like 1.5 weeks, where breaking one of the items that you farmed the whole day for basically means, okay, I lost 1 full day of progress because I can't use the item now potentially. And maybe it would be different if that would not have been my experience. But in general, I think obviously it's okay to have full bricked items, but there should be ways to sway RNG, or to like have some sort of making it feel less bad. It's just full on RNG, and it feels insanely bad if you're like at the low end of RNG. I mean, and this is something that I personally don't like.
I see Mippy position now, because the way you said that you lost 1 day of farming. When we die on hardcore, we lose like 1 week, and that's nothing for us. If you lose 1 day, then you are traumatized. We lose 1 week, and that's okay. Just go again.
Go again, yeah.
Just go again, yeah.
I mean, of course, it's obviously like kind of like speaking from a very like luxurious position, right? Where okay, we are grinding this game every day. Not everyone plays nearly as much as us and all that. And I get it, right? You lose the item that you have grinded for, and like you're waiting for like 5 hours, and for some people this might be like 3 different days, right? Where they grind 5 hours and get 1 drop that is actually potentially an upgrade, and then they break it at the blacksmith. Yeah, I get it. But if you have to grind 5 hours to even get such an item, then you're already at a pretty good point anyway, because you find plenty of items that can be upgrades, in the first, let's say, I don't know, 50 hours of playing a character or something like that, right? There's plenty of 1 GA upgrades that it can go with, and temper, and if you have like 1 GA on every slot with like good tempers, then that's a good build. There's nothing to feel bad about. And then maybe you get lucky and maybe get your 2, and maybe you get super lucky and even have an item that has 3, right? It's like, from my perspective, it's like, okay, you have like this expected let's say 50-hour grind where you have to level your character, you have to do your health height stuff, you have to get your angel breath, you have to get whatever, and then you have to go farm the Neve Iron, like let's say 10,000 Neve Iron. That will take you like 20 hours. And at that point, once you have actually done like this minimum grind of even making that character, to get to the point where you can even masterwork it to 12, then you will have good items. And everything else is just a bonus from there. That's kind of like how I see it, right? If I don't say, okay, I'm grinding out 2 GA items now. I just say I'm grinding out, the character. I want to have the gear online with the stuff that I need and masterwork it up, and then we'll see what we got until that point. And everything else is just a bonus. So that's how I see it. I don't want to have perfect gear in every slot.
Yeah, I have to fully agree. I never really liked having a character that looked like it was exported from a build planner. I think that's a little bit too crazy. And maybe that since that was possible in the past, people have gotten used to being able to do that. And now they are chasing that feeling. And in my opinion, it's a way better feeling to keep finding upgrades even after 4 or 5 weeks of playtime, just like Woody mentioned, instead of being geared to the teeth on week 2 and never ever finding anything again. I'm picking up way more items than before. I'm having a blast looking at them now because there might actually be an upgrade there, right? And if I look back in season 3, week 2, I just salvaged everything. I didn't even need to look at everything.
Right. You mean to say that you don't have Korean gear yet, man?
I'm working on it on the Immortal Sock.
Yeah. Who coined that term? Was that maybe actually in the Maximum meeting?
Yeah, I said it.
Korean gear.
Korean level gear.
Yeah, it's not. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, what's being done over there? It's kind of crazy. We need to step it up, guys.
My gear looks like shit when you compare it to some Korean players. It's crazy.
I haven't even ideally masterworked one item to 12.
No way. Really?
I don't have yet one perfect item yet. So that's my point too.
I mean, you don't have to go have a perfect item to masterwork to 12, right? Like you get masterworking mods back when you salvage it. You are aware of that, right? Come on, this is like whoa.
Whoa, full blown new world view now. Okay, guys, we need to actually wrap it up right here. Thank you guys so much for participating, for your time. Thank you guys so much in the chat for asking questions and being here listening to us. Everything heard is going to go direct to the Maxroll YouTube channel. All the links of all the creators participating are going to be linked down in the description below. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Have a good one.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.